Hi, my name is Gabby Hurlbut, and I'm stepping into the Warzone.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Step into the war zone.
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 Friday night war zone.
Friday night war zone.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Joe Morley, and you already know my co-host Mike on the mic, and this is Welcome to the Warzone. And you guys already saw we got a special guest for you today, the host of Boston Ballin'. She was named one of the future badass women to keep your eye on right now. The first female to step into the Warzone, Miss Gabby Hurlbut.
Hi, I'm very, very flattered about that intro. I really appreciate that, and I'm also flattered to be the first female stepping onto the show. So hopefully I set the bar high for the future.
Oh, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
Joe loves doing that. He'll talk all calm right before the show is about to start. And then the second we hit record, bam, he's 100%. Everyone's always like, whoa.
Yeah, it was completely honest than when we were just chit-chatting before.
Yeah, got to set the show off right. We got to set it off right. But, you know, you're coming from you. Let me set this straight first. We're going to talk some Boston sports today, but you're not just a Boston fan, because I've read some of your stuff and you know everything. You know, you could talk. I mean, you were talking my language the other day when you were talking Dodger baseball, and you call them, hey, this is one of the best teams in baseball right now. So just don't get it twisted, guys. She knows everything, and she'll put you to school on most of it. Hopefully she'll school Mike today.
It's not too hard.
No, yeah, well, I do just love talking sports. It's fun, and especially on social media when people are getting so into it and just engaging with other people on social media about certain things. Some people that are being better than others, but it's definitely a lot of fun, and sports are just you have to have fun with it. You know, people that don't have fun with sports and just take it way too seriously are just lame.
Yeah, and you, I'm sure you get those people that like we do that go, oh, we don't like your opinion, you're dumb, you're stupid, and they give you all the wraparound stuff, and it's fun. I mean, like I said, it's our opinion, and it is what it is, and if you don't agree with it, it doesn't mean you have to come at us. Just give us your opinion. That's all I ask.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've had people like that before, and I've said it's okay if you don't agree with my opinion. That's fine. I mean, that's why it's called an opinion. It's not like I'm just stating a proven fact here. I mean, if I have an opinion on a certain thing going on in a certain game, I can share my opinion, and you can share your opinion. But you can be respectful about it too. But I've also gotten people that are like, you don't know what you're talking about because you're a female, and those types of people as well. So you just kind of have to ignore those people and just keep doing what you're doing.
That's awful, because that's what's great about sports is that you can have your own opinion and we can all have a conversation about it, and then we can walk away, you know, and enjoy the rest of our life as well. But sports is like this little niche for us all to come together and bond. It's not meant to be like bashing people online. That's not what it's about.
And then people get so overboard about it sometimes. And at the end of the day, I have to remind people sometimes, like, this is just sports. It's not like we're trying to like cure cancer here or something like that. We're just talking about sports. It's supposed to be a fun conversation.
Well, speaking about fun conversations, the Boston Celtics have been, I don't know, I would consider it a little disappointing this year with where they're at right now in the standings. Jason Tatum, probably they're one of the top players, right? Is he going to bring you guys a title sometime in Boston?
You know, here's the thing I've been saying about the Celtics this year. I think that we saw a lot of holes on this team once Gordon Hayward left. Once that whole situation happened with Gordon Hayward, I was worried because I was like, you know, I think that he's going to be missed. I think we're going to see that there's a definite hole there. So if they don't make a move before the trade deadline, there's no way that this team is going to be able to compete with anybody. And we saw that. I mean, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that duo, I hope they stay here forever because I love them. And they're still so young. They're 22 and 23. So watching them grow even more, I think is going to be a lot of fun. I do think that this team has the potential, not this year, but I do think that if they hang on to Jason Tatum for a while, I think they will win a championship. And I think that window is still very much open in terms of, people like to just kind of people don't seem to like Kemba Walker on social media either a lot, but the thing about Kemba was that he was coming off of an injury this year. He came back and he started playing some games, and people were expecting perfection from him when he came back. And I said, look, he's rusty, and I mean, he's just coming back, and they're getting used to being out of the bubble now as it is, and let's just give him some time. And he's been playing a lot better lately, and I would be upset, I think, if I saw them get rid of Kemba at this point, because I think he works really well with the Celtics system and what they have going on here. And I think if you can keep those core players together, Kemba, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, I do think they can win a championship as long as they have enough pieces around them. And I do think that they improved that at the trade deadline, and I'm very happy about that. And they just brought in Jabari Parker, who I think is actually going to end up being a really good addition for this team, because Tatum and Brown needed that help, and he just provides more depth after Evan Fournier. And depth was a big issue for this team. So I think that those were things that were addressed. And overall, since the trade deadline, they've actually played better basketball over the last month or so. And we've seen them win more games and be more competitive. And defensively, they're still very, very inconsistent. And that's still a problem that I'm seeing now. So when it comes down the stretch and it comes to the playoffs, I mean, I don't see them going that deep. And that's really frustrating to say, because they've gotten so close and just can't get it done. Like last year when they played the Heat in the conference finals, that was so frustrating, because that was a series I really thought they could win. And granted, Miami was good, and I mean, their defense was tremendous, and that's what got them through last year. But the Celtics had something going on last year, and I really thought that with the momentum they had, that they were going to go to the finals. And I know a lot of people were pushing for a Celtics-Lakers finals anyway. So that's what I was hoping for. So I think this year is not going to be the year, but I think it's a good sign that Danny Ainge made some changes and made some moves when he had to, because I think for the next couple of years, this is a team that, as long as they keep building on that, because they have some young talent too, like Peyton Pritchard, who's a really fun player to watch and is only going to continue to get better too. I think that they're set up for a championship run in the next couple seasons.
Yeah, I think they're going to win a championship for sure with Jason Tatum. I mean, he's so young. He's got possibly 2 decades left in the tank still. That's ridiculous.
I mean,
and you can't say
he's playing like this at this young of an
yeah.
age. He's just so promising for the rest of his career.
As long as he keeps improving and with his potential, he's going to be one of the better forwards in the game. When you see guys like LeBron retire, when you see guys like Kevin Durant retire, he's going to be around to see those guys retire. And then it's going to be him. It's going to be Luka. It's going to be these young cats that are superstars right now for how young they are with their teams, and they're going to start dominating. It's just, can the Celtics build the team around them at the right time? Right now is not the right time. There is too many super teams with Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Harden in the East, and the Philadelphia 76ers have finally gotten the process to come through, and they're really good now too. The Celtics are on a hot streak recently, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they're playing very, very good basketball. Yeah. I mean, they had a West Coast trip recently, swept that. And that was, I mean, they played a Lakers team who, I mean, doesn't have LeBron or AD. So that's a little hard to just really take that too seriously right now, because the Lakers are a very, very different team when you stick those 2 guys on the floor. But still, I mean, there were some promising wins there. They beat Golden State this past week, too. That was a really good win. It was Steph versus Tatum, and that was a fun matchup to watch as well, because they both put up 45 points each of them. So that was fun too, to watch that matchup as well. But I think you're right when you say that you have the LeBrons that are going to be retiring soon, like players like that won't be in the league for much longer. And then it's that new generation of talent, those young guys. And Tatum's going to be one of those players that, as long as he stays here, I do think that they'll win a championship at some point soon. And I think that soon means, I'm saying, I'm going to give this maybe like a 5-year thing right now and say, like, at some point in the next 5 years, I think they will be much better off than they are right now, because we're already starting to see glimpses of that, and we're starting to see them build depth and depth in the bench has just always been their biggest issue. And if they can continue to expand on that, then I really do think that they will be one of those teams that we're talking about in the conversations with Brooklyn and Philly and teams like that. And just even outside of the East, I mean, even if they were to somehow make a miraculous run in the Eastern Conference, there's so many good teams in the West this year that I really don't see the winner of this season being a team in the East. I just think that there's too many competitive teams in the West with Utah and the Lakers when they're healthy, and even the Clippers. I mean, they made some adjustments too, so I wouldn't really sleep on them either. The Suns, and those teams are all just so good that I really don't see a team from the East coming out and winning the whole thing this year. I really think the only team that I see right now that can realistically compete with those teams in the West right now is a healthy Nets team. And it bothers me to say that, but just everything about the Nets right now bothers me. But at the same time, you can't really ignore the fact that they really should be the favorite coming out of the Eastern Conference. I mean, they've been winning games without KD. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's throwing him back in the mix. I mean, that would be a fun matchup, I think, if we see them in the finals with any of those teams that I listed.
Mike, did you hear one of the teams that she listed? Did you hear one of the teams that she listed? She said the Phoenix Suns. Remember the Phoenix Suns?
I think he really saw the difference in that team, though. He's done a lot for that team, and they're good. They're very, very good.
Yes, they are. Mike and I had our pre-season predictions, and I took the Phoenix Suns going all the way, and he laughed at me and said they wouldn't even be a top team. And so I got to throw it in his face every time I get a chance.
Okay. I knew they were going to improve, but who knew they were going to be this good? Like competing in the West at the top of the seeding.
Yeah, them being good, I think is I knew that they were going to be good. I mean, they kind of had built a team that I saw could be really good this year, but I did not know that they would be able to maintain this level of dominance, at least from what I was seeing when the season started. I just didn't think that they were going to be where they are now at this point, but I still was confident they would be a top 5 team in the West for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably got lucky on that prediction. Take any win that I can get. But what you were saying about Boston and making the trades at the trade deadline, we did talk about that on our show, and I was like, Boston should just stay still and not make a trade, because you did, like you said, like you went to the depth and everything that they have. You don't want to trade everything right now because you see the improvement in your team and where they're going. So you had to make those small little moves and not the big moves, just for the future. And hopefully that helps the Celtics out in the, yeah, you might not win it all this year, but hopefully not making the big move this year helps you in the future to win that championship.
Yeah,
that's what I think too, because even there were talks about trading Marcus Smart, and I would not have liked to see that either. I mean, he's been a very, very, very valuable asset to this team this year, and I think he's a very important piece to them winning a championship. So I would have been disappointed to see him go, but overall, who they parted ways with and kind of the overall outcome of the draft, I have to say I'm very pleased with Danny Ainge in terms of what he did, because he didn't get rid of a lot of the current roster and a lot of the current depth that they have to get players like Brooklyn did. They still have a lot of their young talent that's going to set them up for the future, but they also were able to get a couple players that kind of help with that depth problem and could just serve as support for some of those players and some of the starters. So I think overall what they did is something that sets them up to be good enough to still be a playoff team this year, but part of that's because the East is not very good. But also I think that they generally, in terms of looking overall at the moves that were made by a lot of other teams too, I think generally the Celtics made out pretty well, I'd say, in terms of the outcome and the fact that they didn't have to give up a lot of their very important players that have been part of this process.
Yeah, and like you said, that 3 to 5 year window is kind of what they're looking at also, because not everyone's going to play into their late 30s like LeBron at a high level also. So
Exactly.
Guys like Harden, guys like Kyrie, all these guys are in their prime right now. 3 years from now, the league is going to look completely different. Those guys are going to be aging. Those guys are going to be on the decline. And guys like Tatum will be entering their prime. I think they're definitely, to close out the topic, to come full circle, I think they're definitely going to win a title with Jason Tatum on the roster. Now, everyone else, in my opinion, is up in the air because I don't know what the Celtics are going to do, how desperate they're going to get over those 3 years, or what the management's going to do. Hopefully they hang on to Brown. I think he's a budding superstar in the league. And hopefully
I really hope that they hang on to him too. That duo is really starting to be something special. And I would hate to see them separate Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to who's available for the Celtics to even try and get over Brown in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. But I am confident that I think sometime in the next 5 years we should see hopefully a championship. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Well, fingers crossed for Boston sports, fingers uncrossed for LA sports.
Yeah, and speaking of championships, one of our teams won a championship last year. Not to brag about it, but a big trade was made between Boston and LA, and you know about that. Last night I saw that you were on Twitter trying to defend the Red Sox trade of Mookie Betts. Some people are going back and forth on that. So Red Sox baseball this year, the Red Sox started 0-3, and I went on there and I was like, this Red Sox team might be the worst team in the league. Like, they had the hype, and then they did it. Even old pitcher Pat Light was like, yes, I'm with you. I'm on board. And then I said, but I also said the disclaimer that the Red Sox would turn it around because I like the guys that they had. And then they have. Now they're what? They're sitting at 12-7, so they went on a 12-4 run. Your thoughts on this year's Red Sox team?
Yeah, so before the season started and all the off-season moves were being made and they were signing people and things were going on, I really was one of the first people that I remember going on record on Twitter and saying the Red Sox will surprise people this year and could be a very good baseball team. I said, this is not the 2020 Red Sox. I mean, we know that last year the pitching was horrendous, and we know that that was the main reason why they didn't win games last year, because they had the hitting last year, and people forget that they did lead some offensive categories in hitting last year. So I was never concerned about the offense, and that still to this day isn't a concern. But they made some changes pitching wise, and I said, you're going to get Chris Sale back, you're going to get Erod back. This is not going to be the 2020 team. And I said, do I think that they'll win their division this year? No. But do I think that they can make the playoffs? Yes. And a lot of people thought I sounded crazy when I said that, because people were like, no, this is going to be a really bad team this year. Then they get swept by the Orioles at home to start the season. And I'm like, great. Now this is making me look really stupid, because now these people have a real reason to come at me and say, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have had that much confidence in the team. But then they go and they have really good wins. I mean, they beat the Rays, they went to the World Series last year. Then they redeemed themselves against the Orioles by sweeping them. Just go that whole winning tear was fun. And then, I mean, taking 3 of 4 from the Twins, that's pretty good to me. I mean, that Twins team is good. So I even said I would have been happy taking 2 of 4 from that series. So they overexceeded my expectations there. So I was on board with this Red Sox team as soon as I found out they were bringing back Alex Cora, because I said, I think that he does make a big difference because he's a player's coach and the players genuinely like playing for him. And I think we're starting to see some things with other teams. I mean, the Yankees are an example of this, where the players don't really seem like they want to be there or that they have respect for their manager. And I think that goes a long way when it comes to a sport like baseball, when it's a long season. You need to want to be there, and you need to respect and like who you're playing for. And I think the Red Sox, the players are always speaking really highly of Alex Cora and saying really good things about him. And I think that he has a way of bringing this team together that we don't always see in every locker room. And the way that they come out and they approach every game like they're not out of it is something that's going to get them far this season. And I think that they're always fighting till the end of every game. And even yesterday, after the game in the dugout, Alex Verdugo literally looked like he was going to throw up or something because they lost. And that's how much losing hurts them. And I think they came out with a sense of passion and urgency this year to prove people wrong, because too many people were trying to sleep on them. And I think Bloom made some key signings in the offseason that might have been a little underrated, but are going to prove to really be important to this team.
Yeah, I saw Verdugo. He didn't have a great game yesterday. He had 1 for 4, 2 strikeouts, and he made that error out there or that missed catch. So, but Alex Verdugo was one of the guys that I loved in LA. And like you said, you have to bring people in that spark that people want to play with. Verdugo and even Kiki Hernandez are guys that you bring in, and they might not be the all-star guys. Verdugo's on the track too, but Kiki Hernandez might not be that all-star name, but his energy rubs off on everybody else. His energy in that dugout is what's going to get everybody else pumped up. So bringing guys like that in help out a lot. When they traded Alex Verdugo for Mookie Betts, I'm going to tell you that, yes, I was happy as a Dodger fan that we got Mookie Betts, but I was also sad that day when Alex Verdugo was gone.
Yeah, he's so young still, and I'm really excited to see his career blossom here. And I mean, I'm sure you did see, you mentioned that you saw like some of that Twitter exchange last night. And well, I mean, it got people talking, but ultimately there were a lot of people that felt the same way that I felt about the situation, that Mookie probably wasn't going to stay here anyway. And with the amount of money that he was asking for, the Red Sox already at that point needed to rebuild their farm system because they had like no prospects that they could bring up. And they were in a place where, I mean, Bloom came in when they were in a really tough place. I mean, they spent a lot of money and they went and they won a championship. I mean, yeah, that's typically how it works. If you spend a lot of money, you can win a championship, like we saw with the Dodgers last year. But I think looking from a longer term perspective, if we still had Mookie right now, will we have been able to be as set up for the future? No, probably not, because we would not have been able to have some of these players that are now contributing that will be there for a while, and it kind of sets the team up for the future more. And so now they're at the point where they're like, yeah, could they be a playoff team this year? Yeah. Can they win the World Series this year? Probably not, but they have enough little pieces now that they could bring in. And I mean, Jeter Downs was somebody else we got in that trade, and he hasn't even come up yet. So that's exciting too. And so I think they have some good prospects now sitting at the alternate site that they could bring up at any time, which is exciting. And I think there's a lot to work with, and that's something that needed to be addressed. So I think that they've been able to address some of the main concerns that they've had. Obviously, the bullpen is still the biggest question mark to me, because the bullpen was really, really bad last year. But I mean, Matt Barnes has been closing games, which scared me at first, but he's been really solid coming out in the 9th inning in games. And I feel kind of badly for kind of doubting him, but also, I mean, there was a reason to, because last year he would blow leads when he came in the 9th inning. So I really was a little hesitant about that, but I like what I'm seeing in terms of just even the starters, the rotation. I mean, Garrett Richards frustrates me every time he starts. I mean, that one's hard to watch, but the starters have been pretty solid overall so far too. And I mean, it's not these blowouts. They're not giving up a lot of runs every game, and it allows the offense to be able to come in and do their thing, because the pitching staff, for the most part, has kept them in every game, generally speaking. And so I think that that's a good sign as well. And I think, I mean, we're sitting here and it's still April, so obviously anything can happen. But I think it's important that they got a good start, because then if they go into a slump, they'll still be able to be in the mix with their division, because a lot of the division started off slow. So, I mean, I personally hope the Yankees never figure it out, but realistically speaking, knows that they probably will, because they're too talented to not. And I think they will start winning games. But I don't think that what they have right now is the answer for them to win a World Series either. I think that their lineup is too mundane in terms of it's either a home run or a strikeout a lot of times with a lot of hitters like that. And that's been an issue for them for the last few years, but I think it's really starting to catch up with them now. And I think that their pitching staff outside of Garrett Cole is a little questionable. So I think that there's some concern there for them. But I think that they will start playing better. And I mean, Toronto and Tampa, those are both really good teams too. And I think that this is going to be one of the best divisions in baseball to watch this year, because I really think it could be a 4-team race as the season progresses, because those four teams, and then the Orioles will just be the Orioles. But those four teams are just all very, very solid. And I think once the Yankees start playing better, and even the Blue Jays, who, I mean, we just had a 2-game series with them, and each team took 1 game. They're starting to figure it out a little bit now too. And I think they're going to be very good all season. So the Red Sox could be in a situation where maybe they do finish in 4th place in their division, but not because of their record necessarily or how well they play, just because of the division they're in. But I'm still hopeful that they are good enough to be a playoff team, and that as long as they keep winning these division matchups, then I think that they have a really good shot.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, everybody mentioned the. I never wanted to jump on the Blue Jays bandwagon this offseason because I've seen that story before. But you never count out the Rays and you never count out the Yankees. And even though right now I know you're feeling it and I'm feeling the same way, that it's great to see the Yankees on the bottom for once. It's good to see it, and I love it. But then I look back to last year, and they started about the same way last year and still did their thing. Yankees will be the Yankees. They will come back. They will figure it out. And then it just depends on how far the Red Sox can continue this path that they're going on. But right now it's a good ride to watch.
And to
Yeah,
go back,
JD Martinez, I mean, I laugh at everybody that said before this season that JD was washed up, because I mean, he's more than back. I mean, I know he struggled last year, and I really don't like to count last year in terms of weighing, like if somebody's talent is still there, because again, with the shortened season, it's really hard to know how that person would have played had it been a full season. I mean, yeah, he had an off year last year, but I told people, I mean, look, like, let's just move on from last year, and this is a new season and it's a full season again. Like, let's see if he brings back some of that spark. Like, I think he could still have it. And I mean, boy, is he over exceeding expectations as well. And that's been super exciting to watch. And all of these players in the offense, I mean, Xander Bogaerts is heating up now too. So I think the more that more players are starting to heat up, the more exciting it's going to be. And I love Kike Hernandez. I was really happy that they signed him. I think that he's somebody that is a good locker room guy to have. I know that he was really well liked in LA because of his personality and just that leadership that he brings to the locker room. And I think that's really important. And I think having somebody like that here is key. And so I'm really happy that they have him in. And Marwin Gonzalez, I think even is, I think that might have been a little underrated of a move too that they made. But I think that once he kind of finds his stride here, I think he could be really good for this team as well. So it's a fun team to watch right now. I love Alex Cora. I love what they're doing. And I think that even if they don't maintain this level of play all season, I think that they can maintain a high enough level of play all season to really be in the mix with the division.
yeah, there's a lot of competition in the AL, and that's something to keep an eye on as the season develops, because like you said, we are really, really early, and all signs are pointing towards it being a great playoffs in the AL. Now the NL, I think we kind of got a favorite already, kind of starting to emerge as the season goes on. I've seen them in person already once this season, so that's exciting. We're able to go back to baseball games and to go back to the trade, because I think it's important. Because a lot of people get this misconception when they're looking at this, they don't pay attention to the actual situation before the trade goes down. A lot of times when you see a superstar player dealt like that, it's the last year of their deal, or there's a lot of personal turmoil within the organization. It was the last year of his deal. And when you pay a player big money, you want to see him to his last year. But if you're not going to re-sign him, you might as well cash in while you can. And I see that in sports all the time. Every time, to talk about, and I'm a Chargers fan, every time I see Keenan Allen contract come up, I'm ready for the trade at all times. I'm like, it's probably going to happen any day now. And then they re-sign him, and I got to wait another 3 years until it's time to worry about Keenan. Justin Turner, I was worried about him getting traded. So every time a player of his caliber, Mookie Betts' caliber, is on his contract year, he's either getting max money or getting traded in most situations.
Yeah, because it's like, what are we supposed to do? Just let him walk for free and not get anything from a player like that? You know what I mean? And what we got in return is very, very good for the Red Sox future. And I mean, we got what we got back. And also, even just the relief of David Price's contract. Somebody tried to tell me last night, like, well, they could have just traded Price. I was like, nobody is going to be trading just for David Price. Like, I don't know what planet you're on, but nobody's going to want to take on that David Price contract unless there's something else with it. So at the end of the day, I think it was a move that had to happen, and they did what they had to do. And they got some players in return who I think can do really good things here.
Yeah, and Mookie's market value was at its peak also when it happened. People got to realize that all these teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, all these teams competing for the World Series, market value of a player like Mookie during that time frame is at its peak.
Yeah.
And Gabby, let me tell you, people will never forget it. People will always bring it up. I'm a Raider fan, and they traded Khalil Mack a couple years ago for the same reason. They didn't have the money. The team wasn't winning. They had to do something. And they traded him off, and people still bring it up until today. And it's been like 3 or 4 years, and they're like, "Can we bring Mac back?" So the same thing's going to happen with Mookie Betts, because the true fans see the whole picture. The casual fans see that they traded one of the best guys in baseball. Because I don't know, you can agree with me or not agree with me. Maybe I'm biased, but I think, and I've been saying it, and a lot of people have been giving me the heat, but I think Mookie Betts is now challenging, for the first time, somebody is challenging Mike Trout as the best player in baseball.
Oh yeah. I agree for sure. 100%. I would never argue with that.
Yeah. And I don't know. And from the stories that I hear about Mookie Betts, because I didn't follow the Red Sox like you do. I follow the Dodgers, but from what I hear is Mookie wasn't happy in Boston his last year. And some of the stories I hear is he wasn't well liked by a lot of people because of the way he was treating people. And then when he came to LA, he's become a whole different player, personality wise. So sometimes change of scenery is good for a player. But yeah, I think right now we're a little spoiled here in LA to have both Mookie Betts and Mike Trout playing in our backyard.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Trout, like, it's crazy to me that he's still willing to be on a team that is not producing for him. But I mean, the Angels, they're not a sleeper team this year either, for sure. I think that there's some talent over there, but it's crazy that they get a Mike Trout on their team and they just can't win a championship. It's just so crazy to me. But yeah, I mean, I'm on board with that. I think that Mookie is in a much better place now, and he did not want to be in Boston anymore. And people, I think, are having a hard time grasping that because they don't want to believe it. But he would not have been happy if he stayed. I really don't think he would have. And I think at the end of the day, what needed to happen is what happened, and people need to just move on from that at this point because they won't be crying about it anymore if this team wins a World Series without Mookie.
Well, speaking of championships, Mookie Betts went on and won his with the Dodgers, and I think that's what hurts a little bit more. But there was another guy in New England that did the same thing, that he left the Patriots. So the Boston sports fans got hit hard. Yeah. They got hit hard. First Mookie left, he wins the World Series. Then Brady leaves and he wins the Super Bowl. And it's like you're just sitting there like, wait, we just had these great runs, and now you guys go and get us back. So it's kind of like, as sitting outside of Boston, it's kind of like, haha, they got now they feel what everybody else was feeling. But it looks like we'll move into Patriots football now, because this offseason there's been a lot about talk about the Patriots and what they've been doing. Some people would say it looks like they're desperate going out and making all these moves. Are you happy with a lot of these free agent moves?
I am, yeah, because I mean, in case people didn't realize, this was a team that had pretty much no offensive weapons for Cam to throw to. And I'm not saying that was the full issue, because I do really feel like Cam is part of the issue here. And I still don't trust him fully. I mean, he came in and didn't get a full off season, and then he got COVID and he didn't have the weapons. So I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But this was a team that needed to address their offense in the offseason, and you can't rely fully on the draft to do that. So you need to go and you need to sign players. And they had a bunch of cap space to use too. And it's like, what else would you – why would you not take advantage of that? You know what I mean? So I didn't expect him to go and sign a bunch of players in one day. I didn't expect all of that, but I am happy. I mean, they got arguably the two best tight ends in the free agent class this year. And so I think that's really good. And I think just the help in general that Belichick brought into this team now, I think is really going to set them up for better success. And I mean, they had COVID opt-outs last year. They'll have players coming back. But, you know, especially now with Julian Edelman retiring, that's another big thing that I think is tough for Patriots fans to grasp also, because now it's like the OGs are gone, and that's hard. I would not be surprised if he ends up in Tampa for a year, but I think overall I do like what they did, because I think that if they hadn't done a lot of this stuff, then they would be back where they were last year, and we're seeing this mediocre 7-9 team that is in a tough division outside of the Jets, and needed to do more to make themselves be taken more seriously. Because I think Buffalo is still going to be very, very good. Miami is good if Tua can just play better. And I think that with the Patriots, they're now setting up Cam to be more successful. So the pressure really is going to be on him, because if he has these weapons now and he still can't perform, then it just really shows that Cam was the issue and that he is probably washed up and just doesn't have it anymore. And nobody was expecting 2015 Cam to come onto this Patriots team and be that same Cam. None of us were expecting that, but we were expecting him to at least be able to be accurate with his throws, because there were a lot of times when his accuracy was just off. He would have somebody open and he just couldn't target them and hit them. And that was frustrating to watch as a fan this season. And I think a lot of people were just quick to blame everything on Cam, but I was like, there's a lot of other issues here too. But I think now Bill is setting him up to be successful this year, but it's only a 1-year deal. So obviously they're going to need to address the quarterback situation in the draft. And I think that is most likely what their plan is, which is why they didn't go heavy on it in the free agent market, because I don't think there were a lot of free agent quarterbacks that really appealed to them. And I think ultimately that's why we're stuck with another year of Cam, which I wasn't thrilled about, but I am hoping that now that the circumstances are more in his favor, I'm hoping that he at least has a better season than he did last year, and he'll just serve as a bridge quarterback for somebody. But overall, I'm happy with the moves. I think that they did a good job of utilizing their resources in that cap space and going out and getting players, because you can't win championships if you don't have the support system around your quarterback to build around. And I think that last year was frustrating because they tried to almost turn Cam into Brady at the beginning of the season. And Cam's a very different quarterback from Brady. And I think that's something that I found frustrating at the beginning of the season watching, was that they were trying to build their offense around Brady's playing style when you don't have Brady as your quarterback anymore. And, this is really it's interesting. This is really the first time in a while that the Patriots actually genuinely need a quarterback, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the draft. But I'm happy overall with what they did during free agency, because I think that they have some weapons now that Cam's going to be able to utilize. And I think defensively, they're getting some players back on defense. And I think that that's going to make a big difference this year. I mean, I don't think they'll be, I've said to people already, I mean, I said, like, it's kind of pretty much impossible for them to be worse than they were last year, obviously pending injuries. I think that they've improved and they've gotten better. So, I mean, the chances of them going 7-9 again is just very unlikely to me. They definitely will not win their division. I still think that Buffalo will, but I think that they are much better set up to maybe compete for a wild card spot this year. And having that extra game, I think actually might work in their favor.
So you're hoping that a quarterback falls to 15? Is that what you're hoping, or you want to see him take something else?
So I think it just depends. It depends. So if they don't have, because those elite quarterbacks are not going to fall to 15, the ones that everybody's talking about, that I would love to see one of those quarterbacks here, but none of them are going to last that long. So I know part of the talk that people are saying is that they maybe trade with the Cowboys and get the 10th overall pick and try to draft Mac Jones at 10. Given that the first 4 teams, or first 3 most likely, are definitely going to be probably drafting quarterbacks. I mean, the 49ers situation is pretty questionable still. I mean, nobody's really sure what's going to happen there, but Mac Jones is the quarterback that I see most likely them being able to grab if they trade up for a pick. And if they don't trade up for a pick to get a quarterback at that point, then I think it would be in their best interest to wait, because there will still be solid quarterbacks, I think, in the second round that they could probably draft and then focus on other positions when it comes to that 15th pick. Maybe drafting knowing Belichick, it'll be like a defensive end or like a linebacker or something like that. But I mean, that won't hurt though either, because you still need to address those other positions as well. I mean, wide receiver, that position, I mean, it'd be nice to address that in the draft as well early on. But I think if they don't trade up to get one of those quarterbacks, then I think that they should look into addressing other positions first, and then maybe draft a quarterback later on. But if they can trade up, I'd love to see them draft like a Mac Jones. I think he actually could be a good fit here. And I think it's very important to draft a quarterback that you know might work with your system, because that's going to be your guy. I mean, like, they're not going to have Cam long term, and that's been made clear with the fact that it's only a 1-year deal, and he's on the older side, and it's just important to have that guy that's going to come up. And it's clear that Jarrett Stidham isn't that guy either, and so you can't be just banking on having him as your backup. So I think that the quarterback situation is very, very important, and one of the most important things for them when it comes to this draft. But it really just depends on if they move that pick and they're able to trade up, because if not, then I mean, there will be quarterbacks later on that they can probably take, but this is a year where they have to draft a quarterback, because you need somebody to come up and learn the system under Cam for a year. And then ideally that person after this upcoming season would step in in that role after this upcoming season and be the guy,
Yeah, and it's sad, the Cam Newton situation, man, just because of his regression, I guess, over the years. I was always a huge Cam Newton fan in Carolina, big defender of Cam anytime I would talk about it. And I think possibly when they were looking at him, maybe his arm had a little more zip in it in the offseason when they were looking at him. But I think that shoulder is taking too much damage. So maybe when he had that, that workout where it's like, all right, we're evaluating if you're healthy or not, he probably looked fine, because he had taken about 2 years off at that point. But you get into, by the time you get to week 1 of the season, how many footballs is the man thrown, getting ready for the season? And if I feel like his shoulder can't handle the throwing the quantity of throwing that it takes to get through an entire NFL season. That's what we saw this last year, and we're probably going to see something similar. And that's why I like what they did. They went out and they got guys that are good on 3rd and 5. They got guys like Hunter Henry. They got guys like Jonnu Smith. Kendrick Bourne is one of the better slant runners that were available in the wide receiver free agent pool. Like 3rd and 5 is what they have as their weapons to convert, because first down, we're running the ball probably. Second down, we're running the ball probably. We are ready for 3rd and 5 and to convert on 3rd and 5 down the field all game long and lean on the back of the defense. Because all those opt-outs that are coming back, those guys aren't just going to come back and suck at football all of a sudden. Those guys are going to come back and make what was already a top 10 defense last year, probably top 5 again, possibly top 3, maybe the best defense in football. We'll see if they're able to hold on to Stephon Gilmore and if he can come back healthy or not. I think that really is the make or break whether this is going to be the best defense in football, whether Gilmore is healthy or not.
Yeah, that's a big question mark is him and his future here and whether he can be healthy, because if he's here and he can be fully healthy, that's going to make all the difference in the world. And the defense was not something that I was majorly concerned about really even before that, because I was like, yeah, I mean, we know that there's COVID opt-outs on defense. I mean, nobody's discounting that. And I mean, some people did, some people just forgot about it, but I think that's a very, very important thing to remember. And I do agree with you. I think this is going to be one of the best defenses in the league. And I think that's really going to help them. And we might still see some frustration when it comes to Cam, because I really am having a hard time feeling like he still has anything left in the tank. I mean, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but there's just a big part of me that's saying that he might just not have it anymore. And there were a lot of these issues we never had with Brady, because Brady could always target Gronk when he needed somebody to be there in the clutch and catch it, or Julian Edelman, like he always had his guys that he went to. And so these problems that we saw this past season are problems that, a lot of other teams might have, but that the Patriots didn't have with Brady. So that was a year for them to really see those. And then for Belichick to be like, okay, this is what we need to go out and address this offseason. And that's what he did. And now he created this sense of like, okay, Cam, I mean, we have the help for you. So now let's go out and win some football games. And I think that we might, in terms of what you said, see some frustration from an offensive standpoint, unless Cam can really figure it out. But I take some solace, I think, in the fact that they're not spending a lot of money on Cam this year, and the team's success is going to have to do a lot with what they pay him, and that it's only a 1-year deal. And I think that shows that Belichick is not fully in on Cam. He just felt like he was the best option at the time in free agency, which I mean, I kind of agree with that to an extent, because he's a guy that knows the system already. Who are you going to bring in a veteran quarterback and try to train them in the system while you're also trying to bring in a rookie that is going to try to learn the system too? So I think that at the end of the day, it was easier bringing Cam back in because he knows the system already, because he has a year under his belt. So I think that's kind of the mindset that they had, but it's clear that Bill's not fully in on him either. So yeah. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they actually do during the draft, and because that'll show really how much confidence he has.
Man, I think Bill Belichick has a plan that he's been executing since a year ago too. And I was telling, I had another show with another co-host. He was a lot better than this guy, but I take Joe for what he is and talk with him almost every day about sports. But I had a different co-host who was a huge Patriots fan, and he was still calling for, 10, 11, 12 win season. And I was telling him, hey man, relax. Bill Belichick is resetting this team right now. He has a plan. Last offseason, he wasn't too active despite losing a bunch of players and players going into opt-outs, because he knew this is the perfect opportunity just 1 year after Brady left to go ahead and reset this team, reset the cap situation and where they're putting most of the money into, reset, the quarterback situation, reset the weapons, reset everything. And that's what we saw this offseason. There's another step in that plan. Cam Newton, I'm not sure. Like you said, I don't think he's a part of the long-term plan, but short-term, he's just buying time while Bill Belichick builds this team. And I know you're saying that you want to see Mac Jones in New England. We could see another kid that wears number 1 and had a similar college career to Cam Newton in New England as well. And in that situation, if this is all planned out by Bill, you got the perfect mentor of what not to do as a quarterback dual threat, his size and speed.
And you kind of hit the nail on the head with that too. And I think I will never, ever be able to doubt Belichick and what he's doing. And I think last year, and with the frustrating season, I think people were like, well, what is Bill doing? Like, what's his plan? And I was like, he always has one. I was like, I have to believe that this has to do with some sort of greater long-term plan that he has in his head, because, I mean, that this is the type of coach that you don't doubt. You know what I mean? Like he's proven over and over again that you should trust him, and that he's a mastermind at a lot of different things. And I think from a longer term perspective and what happened last season, I think he was already looking ahead to pass that. And I have to believe that he has some sort of plan in place for how he pictures this team going forward, because, as happy as I am that Cam isn't a long-term answer, I'm also happy that they don't have to worry about training yet another veteran quarterback into the system that doesn't know the Patriots organization yet. And I think that at the end of the day, ultimately, this is probably the best outcome they could have gotten, because they don't have to pay him a lot of money right now. And I think I'll never trust Belichick. And I think longer term, this all is going to make sense. And we're going to see this all make sense in terms of down the road, the next couple of years, people are going to be like, oh, I see now why he was doing this, this, and this. And sometimes it's hard for fans to see in that moment why that makes sense. But I think over the next couple of years, we're going to see how all of this kind of fits together.
Yeah, and Boston fans need to be a little bit thankful, okay? Because usually when you go into a rebuild, being a Chargers fan and him being a Raiders fan, usually when you go into a rebuild, that's 3 or 4 seasons of 4 to 5 win seasons. 1 7-win season where you guys are competing for a playoff spot up until about week 13, 14. Yeah. I don't think y'all should complain. Now y'all are probably going to be a 10-win team again at the minimum.
Like they were in that playoff hunt, which is crazy because they probably shouldn't have been. It just goes to show how good the coaching is there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this is nothing compared to, I think, what other teams have had to go through.
Yeah, one playoff appearance in the last 18 years for me. So since I'm not a big Patriot fan or a Tom Brady fan because I grew up and I watched that Tuck Rule game, and it was still a fumble in my opinion. But that's for another day. Like you said, I think, like you guys have been saying, Belichick had a plan, and people forget that players were coming out saying Belichick was telling them to opt out last year. So you got to think that he knew something that a lot of people didn't. He even let his dog do the drafting for him last year. That's how much he cared about it. Belichick, a GM, is not that great, I don't think. But as a coach, I think he's doing what he's doing, and he's going back to the roots. He's going back to what works. And when you saw him go, and this is what I tell people, I go, usually we see the Patriots go out and sign somebody, another team's trash, another team's player that they had for 3 years and they didn't do anything, and then they come over to the Patriots and they succeed. Now Belichick had money and he went out and got gold, and he got the great players. Now, what is he going to do with that? Now he doesn't have to transform somebody from trash to gold. He's already got it. And so I'm interested to see where that goes with the Patriots team, but I'm glad he got the 2 tight ends back. I think that's going to help out a lot. But like you said, yeah, let's see where Cam's at this year. And I do not want to see a quarterback fall, but I am starting to think one will fall.
Yeah, that'd be great for me. I mean, that'd be the best case scenario, because obviously that is a position that is probably the most important right now, and that would be ideal if we can get one of those guys. But it all just depends on who everybody picks above them, because I think there's a couple teams that we're still not sure what direction they're even going to go in.
Yeah, if Atlanta doesn't trade out, I think one's falling to 15 for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
I actually agree with that. I think
Lance
so too.
or Fields or Jones, depending on who the 49ers want to take. Someone's falling to 15 if the Falcons stay there and take like a Kyle Pitts or a Sewell or whoever they want to do. Now, if they trade out, let's say the Bears come in and get a quarterback, or Patriots come and get a quarterback, I think the Broncos at 9 is probably the cap right there. That's when that last big quarterback's going to go.
And that's the scenario that I'm kind of worried about. But again, it all starts with San Francisco and who they pick, and then kind of I think everything else will be determined from there.
Mm-hmm.
If NFL allows Justin Fields to fall and the Patriots to get him, I'm done. I'm done.
It's going to happen.
Because
that would be a Patriots thing to happen, though.
I could see it happening.
I've been on record saying that Justin Fields.
I could see that happening, or I could see, let's say, the first 4 go. Let's say someone comes up and gets Trey Lance at 4, and we're at like 7-8, Panthers and Lions. The Patriots are on the clock all of a sudden.
Which everybody nightmare, I think.
Yeah.
I think Justin Fields is the best quarterback in this draft, and that's even over Lawrence, and a lot of people will hate on me for that. But I like what Justin Fields is doing, and if he falls to the Patriots,
ever since your Phoenix Suns take, anything's possible from me. So
yeah,
hey man, I respect the take. I like Lawrence and Wilson a little bit more. Actually, I like Lawrence a lot more, but that Phoenix Sun take got me, so I can't say much.
I would never complain about Justin Fields being in a Patriots uniform.
Why not, huh? Well, Gabby, I appreciate you coming into the Warzone, stepping in. You did a great job. You guys can find her at Gabby Hurlbut 10 at Twitter and on Instagram as well. I appreciate you coming on. You did an awesome job.
Thank you for having me, guys. This was fun.
Yeah, and everybody who follows us, you guys already know that I'll see Mike on Friday night.